Welcome to Maliv, the Matrix of Living channel. I'm Conrad, the avatar of Jonas, the creator of this channel. Let me explain why Jonas uses me as his avatar in these videos. In fact, there are many advantages to using AI and an avatar to produce videos, even if it seems a little strange to use them in a spiritual context. So please let us know what you think in the comments. One of the advantages is that I, as an avatar, I am perfectly multilingual, while Jonas struggles to speak some languages. You don't think I can speak about 20 languages perfectly? Maintenant je parle français, une langue très nuancée et poétique. Hala kararust farsi, zaban shair buzurg Sufi Jalaluddin Rumi sohbat kanam, hamantur ka shuru behrah raftan dar rah mi kanid, rah zahir mi shud. Of course, I can't know what I'm talking about. But the last sentence was in Persian, or Farsi, the language of the great Sufi poet Jalaluddin Rumi. That was my introduction as Conrad. After the intro, Jonas will explain why he started this channel and give some background on the content. But one thing I can reveal right now is that whether you like the content of this channel or not, you will be surprised, puzzled, or eventually inspired by it. The question of why I created this channel is not even 100% clear to me, but let me explain how it came about. Before the start of 2025, I hadn't even considered making a YouTube channel. But in January, I started exploring the possibilities of using AI to produce professional-looking videos. As I have collected a lot of material and even ideas during our 40-year spiritual journey, the idea of this channel somehow began to take shape. I would like to mention here that in the past we have met many different groups and traditions on our spiritual journey. But now my wife and I have been on our spiritual journey alone for more than 20 years. So some of the content in this channel is linked to a particular group or tradition from more than 20 years ago, but in general, it is more of a distillation of what has happened along the way. But to give you some idea of my background, here are some of the traditions and people that have influenced my view of spirituality. In general, this view is based on the traditions of the Abrahamitic religions, but not at all in a traditional way, rather as a synthesis or foundation. Since there is no exact term for it, the nearest description would be 21st century Western Sufism. And the first person I can point to is George Gurdjieff. He wrote several books and influenced many people in the early days of a new way of looking at spirituality in the West. Next on the list is John G. Bennett. He is best known for his books on psychology and spirituality, particularly the teachings of G.I. Gurdjieff. If you want to know more about him, I would recommend reading his autobiography, Witness: The Story of a Search. Another interesting autobiography is that of Irina Tweedy, Daughter of Fire, a diary of a spiritual training with a Sufi master. In this book, she gives a detailed account of what it is like to undergo such training with a master. But I must add that the days of Sufi or other spiritual masters are gone. She was a Russian-British Sufi and teacher of the Naqshbandiya Mujaddidiya order. You may be wondering what relevance these people who lived in the 20th century could have today. Well, these are the people I think I know what they are talking about. There are many more, but they are less relevant or accessible in the context of this channel. The last two people I would like to introduce are more scientists than mystics, although they are probably mystics in their own right. There is Jean Gebser, a cultural philosopher and poet who described the structures of human consciousness in his opus magnus, The Ever-Present Origin. During the Second World War, he had a vision of how human consciousness has evolved from the time of Adam to the 20th century and even beyond. And there is Jean-Émile Charron, a French nuclear physicist, philosopher and writer. He has written over 20 books on physics, but unfortunately they are all in French. Only 2 books about physics, spirituality and psychology have been translated into English. But these 2 are probably the ones you and I can understand unless you were a nuclear physicist yourself. The one book that explains his work in his scientific texts has the title, The Spirit, That Stranger Inside Us, and it describes the interaction of the material and spiritual worlds. If you're interested in his work, I've made another video that delves into his fantastical universe and shows how electrons play a crucial role in sustaining the spiritual world. They were remarkable people and they did important work. But stories and writings from the past are not the reason why this channel exists. I founded this channel because I am convinced that humanity needs to turn its attention around. We have entered a very troubled period in the evolution of human consciousness, and I see that the unconscious human evolution, the heart and the mind, has reached a limit. We need to regain access to the spiritual world in order to begin a conscious evolution that can lead us to our true destiny as human beings. Of course, there are things we need to fix with our minds and ingenuity. But the core of the problem is ourselves. And to change ourselves, we need help from a higher source. The French politician and writer André Malraux has once said, "The 21st century will be spiritual or it will not be." Okay, actually it will be religious. But after more than 60 years, it might be fair to use a more current phrase. And this spirituality has to be accessible to everyone, nothing abstract. It is about the presence of a higher force, a power that has been associated with the Holy Spirit in ancient times. Even some of the content in the channel is quite complex. At the end of the day, it has to be carried on by this presence. So, let me end with another quote from Rumi here. There is no prayer without presence. What this literally means is that we can read hundreds of books on spirituality, or we can pray, or do all kinds of spiritual exercises for several hours a day. If all this is done without a real connection to a higher presence, it is more or less worthless. So one of the most important questions for us in the 21st century is how to reconnect with an almost forgotten spiritual reality. The kind of reality that we can read about in the sacred books, but which is very rarely found in the current state of the world. That is more or less what this channel is about. The transformation of ancient wisdom into a form that a modern mind can understand. The philosophy or cosmology of this channel is based on the stories of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. To this is added knowledge from Sufi, Gnostic and metaphysical sources. It could be summarised as pansufism, a term that came to mind when I was writing this text. The prefix pan is Greek and means all-embracing, whole, all-inclusive. To see it as this reminds me of a story I once heard. Someone said that at its core, Sufism is not tied to any particular religion, but is a practice that has existed since the time of Adam. That's about it.